for give us some time to speak about you and your company and about how you create a company in Vietnam as an expatriate. Please introduce you.
So yeah, I'm Frank. I'm Belgian. I was born in Africa. I grew up in Chile, lived a bit in Europe, but spent last 37 years in Asia. My background is quality control. When I was 17, I wasn't doing too well in school, so my father gave me two choices: or I study seriously or I start work, and I opted for the second one. I was trained as an inspector in quality control. And then my first assignment was in Pakistan to work in a knitted mill in Pakistan, fully integrated knitted mill, making fabrics, dyeing them, printing them, and making garments. And I was 18 years old, didn't know anything. Can I say better words also?
For sure.
Didn't know shit. And I worked with my father for 27 years. We set up 19 factories in different countries in Asia. So my background is quality control, but I have a lot of experience in setting up factories, specifically in the apparel business, in garments and so on. So when we stopped this business of trading and manufacturing apparel in 1998, 1999, I had the opportunity for Sears. I don't know if you've Sears in the US. It's a big retail group. Sears had big problems with quality in Vietnam. I knew one person working there, and he approached me and said, can you recommend some people in Vietnam who can help us improve quality in the production? So I said, I can do that. So I set up a company here in Vietnam to do quality control inspections. So the core activity of SEDITEX, which is a company set up in early 2000s, is basically go in the factories and do inspections from the beginning of a production to the shipment.
Okay.
So basically setting up a business in Vietnam, which is a question we're going to get to, right?
Right.
Today, as another activity that we're doing, so core activity is quality control. Another activity we started to develop 3 years ago because China was getting expensive and we were getting a lot of inquiries from people to help them find factories. So we set up a sourcing team. So every customer basically gets a very different type of service with SEDITEX. And one of the services help them to set up offices or factories. So we have a lot of experience of setting up businesses for overseas investors.
Why your customers choose to open factories and offices here in Vietnam?
Well, the main reason is most of the customers have already an existing manufacturing solution, whether it's their own or it's the main supplier they have in China or in India or somewhere else. Most of them are actually getting out of China.
Okay.
And the last 5 years, almost all the projects I've worked on were factories, or investors who had something in China, or their own factory, or one big supplier, and they felt that China was getting too difficult for them. That's really the main reason. And then why they come to Vietnam rather than other places. But when an investor comes to us, usually we always offer them more than just Vietnam. We make a project study where we analyze Vietnam in comparison to other options, so that they are aware of the pros and cons of coming to Vietnam. And depending on the priorities, they can decide, oh no, I'm not going to do it in Vietnam, I'm going to go to Batam in Indonesia, or I'm going to go to the Philippines, or I'm going to go to Thailand, or Malaysia, or Africa. So when an investor comes to me, I don't sell Vietnam.
Okay.
Actually, I always try to give them other options, to really know how eager they are, or understand why they would favor Vietnam over. I chose Vietnam 20 years ago. It's one of your questions, but because at the time it was the country that needed me most. There were the most opportunities for me to develop a business here. There was nothing.
Okay.
It's very different today. There's a lot of existing factories and existing businesses. So my motivation at the time was different. The second motivation was a smile.
Okay.
Yeah, people smile here, and it's a very nice environment to live and work in. But I think it's very important that you enjoy, doing business on a daily basis, and you work with a team of people that have a smile on their face. Today, it's still valid. I think a lot of people come to Vietnam and decide to choose Vietnam over other places to invest because it's a pleasant environment. Thirdly, it's always very important for investors, it's politically stable. It's critical because people who invest a certain amount of money before they start to get the returns going to last a couple of years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. So if it's a politically unstable country, they're not sure, maybe it's interesting today, but will it still be interesting next year or in 2 years' time? Or will there be political turmoil and the investor will go down the drain? Investment will go down the drain. So a very critical aspect, and one of the reasons why so many companies come to Vietnam over other countries like Cambodia or Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, or where there's a lot of potential, or Indonesia, a massive country which is, you know, have a lot of things to offer, but it's not so stable. Stability is a key factor for investors to choose Vietnam. And then the obvious, low wages, education level is high. Everybody can read and write. 97% literacy. It's also an important aspect for people. So even the cleaner can read and write, and when they have a contract, they can read the contract they get. And so these are, I would say, the critical points why the investor would choose Vietnam over another country. There are other factors, but again, I would repeat the key factors is political stability, smiles. I mean, pleasantness of doing business here, and then of course low cost labor.
Which difficulties do you encounter when you arrive here and when you set up your company? I mean, and is it still the case? Do you have still some difficulties that you have encountered 20 years ago or not?
So 20 years ago, as a foreigner or foreign investor, you had almost no choice but to take a local partner. You could not set up a business here on your own as a foreign investor. That has changed a lot. Today, in almost any industry or trade in Vietnam, you actually can, as a foreign investor, be 100% owner of your business. You don't need a local partner. So that has changed a lot. Was it a difficulty in the past? Not really, because basically you would not partner with a person. You could, but you would partner with a government entity. So in those days, 20 years ago, you would create your company under the umbrella of a government institution. They would be your partner.
Okay.
So that partner is never going to eat you up or trick you, or you know from the start what it's going to cost you, and basically you operate your business openly to them, but it's a silent partner. They don't interfere with your business at all. So in a way it was easy. I've seen a lot of foreigners come to Vietnam and partner with individuals, and that usually, in many cases, turn sour after a few years. And in Vietnam, a foreigner never gets the advantage. So in a claim within, in a partnership with the Vietnamese will always know how to get things on their side, and basically the foreigner would be the loser if there is a conflict. There have been good stories too. There have been successful partnerships, but they're very few. So, as a challenge, I would say in those days was if you were not partnering with a government institution, if you were partnering with an individual, that was probably one of the biggest hurdles or difficulties to make it work. Also, and still today, if you set up a company from the start as a foreign investment, your range of activity is very specific. So if you set up a company to do design, basically in your license you will be allowed to do design, but you will not be able to sublease part of your office or offer consulting services or teach design to other people. So as this is one of the big hurdles that people have when they come to set up business in Vietnam. When you apply for the original license, basically you have to start to think about all the potential activities you would like to have in that business in the future. You might have them, you might not have them, but if you don't put them at the beginning in your license, it's very later on difficult to add them. It's possible, but it's difficult. This is one of the big difficulties, but not the biggest. The biggest challenge in Vietnam is communication. try to explain this. If you grow up as a Vietnamese, or if Vietnamese is your mother tongue, you're dealing with a language which is very inaccurate. A lot of the words are very vague, they're not clear. So if you grow up with that kind of vocabulary, obviously your brain has to develop a seventh sense to second guess what people are saying. Because what they are talking is not accurate. So you have to interpret it yourself. And anybody who grew up with Vietnamese as a mother tongue, automatically when you talk to them verbally, this reflex is to second guess what you're saying. They don't, even if you talk in English or in French or in a language which is much more accurate, the circuit in the brain is such that they will second guess rather than to really listen and understand what you're saying. I've had staff which were Vietnamese born overseas and they came back here, they didn't have that defect, I would say, different way of thinking. So communication for me is definitely the biggest hurdle in Vietnam, and not impossible to overcome. You just have to make it a rule that whenever you communicate with somebody, it has to be written, or at least verbal, confirmed by written, or bullet points. It's very important to always have paper in front of you and bullet points, things that you explain to a Vietnamese. It's just things, rules you have to make when you live here, when you do business here. You know that communication is the biggest issue, and you have to find ways to overcome it. Now, if you ask other investors, they will say, red tape is a big problem here. Administration is very heavy, and nothing is clear. So you need to have a certain document made. You go to the administration office first, find out where it's done. The white one takes a while. Information is not readily available, especially not for foreigners. That's how it is here. Just patient. Because for me, these are punctual problems.
Okay.
They only happen when you need to have some document made, when you need to deal with the administration, which is not all the time. You need to deal with tax, once a month or once a year, VAT, immigration every 3 years when you need to renew your permits and so on. So for me, these are punctual problems. They're not critical. But I know a lot of people that are very affected by it. They're very upset with it, because they expect things to happen the same way as they would be, back in Europe or in the US, where it's black and white. You go online, you know what you need. Here it's not. And so that comes to my third point, which is probably a big struggle here, is access of information. It is very difficult, and the key to success of Vietnam is to be patient and to have a good network, so that you know where to ask questions and where to get answers, because it's not obvious. So, is it easy to set up businesses in Vietnam? Comparatively to other countries, yes. I would say the initial stage of getting the information of what's required to open an office and getting the license, it's tiring, but actually it's quite efficient. You can get the license within a couple of weeks if you get all the documents in order fast, if you get the right documents, if you have the right person to help you to do the business, just to set up the business. It's very smooth, and once you have a business, it's the same. Initially you get tested a little bit by the local authorities, but if you don't and you just play by the game and you be patient and just go to the offices 6 times instead of 1 and don't take shortcuts, in the long run you'll have a reputation of being somebody who doesn't give money easily, who wants to play by the rules, and things will be very easy. What's key for an investor also is to be able to take money out, if you make a profit in Vietnam, and it's something you can do as a foreign investor after you pay your corporate tax on it. You actually have every right to take the money out and bring the money home. So I would say yes, it's easy to do business. Today's biggest challenge, other than the ones we already mentioned, is probably to find good staff. Because a lot of people are coming into Vietnam and are setting up businesses, so it's difficult to find the right management level staff. It's usually easier to find somebody from outside Westerner or somebody from Thailand or Philippines or another Asian country, because local talent is not easy to find. And local talent usually already have the bad habits. So what I already recommend all my customers is to create talent, because one of the biggest assets of the Vietnamese of Vietnam is that they're very eager to learn, and they learn very fast.
Finally, you should be patient. You should be eager to think like Vietnamese people. I mean, to understand their culture.
You don't need to think like them because they don't want,
Sure. Understand them. And what else should you do to be successful?
I think patience is the biggest quality requirement, because things don't happen fast. But if you are patient, you're guaranteed to succeed. The extent of your success depends a lot on the team you can create to back you up. So that's again what I mentioned about having a good finding good management talent, or creating it, training them. Reputation is very important. They call it the face in Asia, but in Vietnam, if you have a reputation of somebody who being clean, who respects Vietnamese and Vietnamese culture, everybody will be behind you and support you. If you're not, everybody will be against you and try to sink you. So it's important that you treat people with respect.
So, what about your future?
My future is
staying in Vietnam?
yes. I will be buried here. I will be buried here or burned, and my ashes will be thrown in the Vietnamese Sea, maybe. Definitely, Vietnam is still a long way to go. I would say it's still it's not a child anymore, but it's still a young teenager, and there's a lot of things that still will evolve here in the next few years. And you see this already in the industry. Vietnam is now not only manufacturing the first stage industries, which is shoes and apparel and furniture. Now it's really focusing more on high tech and heavy industries and so on. So it's going to be very exciting just to be in the next 10 years here in Vietnam and see how things are going to turn out. Life is getting better for the Vietnamese, but also for us expats living here.
So to conclude, what would be your advice for people, for expatriates who want to set up a company in Vietnam?
Find the right partners to help you. If you don't have the knowledge and the network in Vietnam, you need, before you start anything, to find the right people to support you and guide you. It will help you to succeed and not give up. You have to understand that for every 10 investors that come to Vietnam, 5 of them give up within the first year, because they don't have the right information, they don't have access to information, they don't have the right people to back them up. The other 5 are the successful ones. So it's a key to really partner up, not partner up, but cooperate with people who have experience on the ground.
Thank you.